Welcome to the String Show Show. I am Ryan. 3 letters: P, A, and F. If you're not a guitar player, they're just 3 letters. If you are a guitar player, you're probably salivating right now. And I recently thought, what is it about the PAF made so many years ago that was so special? And so I decided to dive into it. I know the basics of the PAF. I know that it was a humbucker designed by Seth Lover in 1955. Until the design was patented, the pickups wore patent applied for stickers on their bases. Over the years, the acronym PAF has come to indicate the features, construction, and tone of the guitar pickups with these patent applied for decals made by Gibson between 1956 and 1961. From 1957 to 1961, the Gibson PAF remained the standard pickup installed in Les Paul Standard and Les Paul Custom models, as well as being used in semi-hollow and hollow body models. Today, the most prized Gibson PAF pickup guitars are in the 58, 59, and 1960 Les Paul Sunburst guitars with the figured maple, 1959 and 60 bursts being the most sought after. My favorite modern recreations of the PAF are made by Righteous Sound. I have RAFs in this Heritage H535 and RAF2s in this Heritage H150. So I figured the best person for me to sit down and talk to about PAFs would be Josh Spataro of Righteous Sound. Hey Josh, how are you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. Hey, I have a very convoluted topic that I want you to chime in on because I think you know a little bit more about the mechanics of these things than I do. We're talking about PAF pickups.
The PAF.
PAF pickups. And it's interesting. Like on one hand, it's very interesting because I feel like Gibson somehow did a really good job of being able to fetishize their pickups. It's like they're the only guitar company that we think about that have names that you got the PAFs, you got the T-tops, you got the Shawbuckers, you got the what were those the Dirty Fingers, you get and it's weird that they have been able to fetishize it, but the highest fetish is for the PAF pickup. One thing that I've learned in my research is that there was no standard PAF.
I would say most winders are trying to achieve the PAF based on specifications and not really digging in and trying to replicate a sound. I would say that most are, they would see an example of a PAF spec and would try to replicate it to the best of their abilities. But the thing about the PAF is each pickup is a unique pickup. There was no quality control as far as all your magnets had to measure within certain specifications. It was pretty much, does the magnet have a charge? Cool, then use it.
Because they would use all different kinds of magnets, and then I was also reading that there's like a difference between the short magnets and the long magnets and all of the and it was, to me, it was kind of like, and this is something that you mentioned earlier when we were talking kind of leading into this is like there is no PAF, there is no single PAF, right? I mean, like there are hundreds of individual PAFs. Some of them sound great. Some of them sound not great. And you were telling me earlier a little bit about how, like, the process of how they went to make these pickups, and it was pretty random. And that would be interesting for other people to hear as well.
Most definitely. So the way that a PAF was constructed was you had, a assemblyman who would wind. Say he was going to do slug coils, and that day he probably wind 100 slug coils on a winder that didn't have a counter. So they wound to time. He'd put it on there and he'd look at the clock and, maybe talk to his buddy for a little bit and then take his coil off. Oh, that one has a little bit more winder or a little bit more wire than the other one. And he'd put it in a bin, and then he'd wind some screw coils same way. And then what they would do was they would pull a slug and a screw and pull a magnet out, and they'd assemble their PAF. So there wasn't really a quality control.
It wasn't a bunch of guys in lab coats like taking precise measurements and stuff like that.
No, these were probably some super grizzled dudes who were, looking forward to going drinking after work. That's, I gotta wind these up.
Yeah, I mean they're up today. They're up in Michigan. It was winter. What else are they gonna do?
Absolutely, you gotta stay warm.
Yeah. There are some famous PAFs.
Yes.
That we think about. We think about the pearly gates is one. And that was I believe Billy Gibbons brought in his main Les Paul to Seymour Duncan with those pickups in it. Duncan took readings of them and stuff like that and tried to replicate them. He also found that it was significantly hotter than other PAFs. And so that is a famous PAF. I think Joe Bonamassa's PAF is another one that a lot of people, Duncan even made, 1,000 of his specific PAF. And there were certain attributes of that, I don't know how many bursts Bonamassa has, but there was one pickup that he was like, this is the one. This is the one. Right. So when you go to construct a PAF, because I feel like it's kind of like an overdrive pedal if you're a pedal company. Like, yes, everybody has one. Yes, you need to have one in your roster. And I feel like the same goes with PAFs. What is it that you are looking to get? And what is it that you're like, when you hear the words PAF, what do you hear? What are the RAFs hoping to achieve?
Well, the RAF is a replica of an actual PAF set that I was able to test. I was fortunate enough to live in Seattle for several years, and we had a lot of really nice vintage shops there. Mm-hmm. And I had some friends that worked at one shop in particular that let me kind of reverse engineer a PAF. Now, it was a good example of a PAF because at the same shop, you'd play some and it was like, that one's okay. Like you're saying with Gibbons, Pearly Gates, not typical to be a higher output. Most are kind of like the early PAFs or mid 7K. There's debate on even the magnet type. Some guys you'll say, oh, they were all Alnico 4. And then you'll hear another guy that's like, no, they were all Alnico 2. And then the other guys, no, they were short A5. And it's like, maybe all those guys are really correct in a sense because there wasn't a strict recipe that they were trying to replicate.
Yeah. I had read that they randomly used 2, 3, 4, and 5 up until about 61. Like, it was just basically what you were describing, kind of like whatever they could get. I think about this with, like, going through the history of, like, the Big Muff, too, and it's like there's so many different versions of the Big Muff and things like that people really get into, and it's like, the parts they used in it were the ones that they could get at that period in time.
That's right.
Like that was what got delivered. What we're kind of uncovering here is this mythical pickup was kind of the same thing. It was just like whatever the magnet guy delivered.
That's right.
What we used. Yeah.
That's right. They batch, really at the end of the day, Gibson is a business, and of course, the employees that work there, making a quality instrument is paramount to them. But when you have businessmen at the top, really it's about the bottom line at the end of the day. So it was, we're going to order 10,000 of X magnet here. And even like when you get into magnets, the Alnico 5 today is not the same as the Alnico 5 yesterday, because now we actually have guidelines that magnet manufacturers follow as far as, an Alnico 5 consists of, this, and this, and to what degrees, and then how it's heated up, and is it magnetized while it's heated up, or is it magnetized after? We have standards that manufacturers follow. So really, I guess it just comes down to, if you have a good example of a PAF, as a pickup manufacturer, you'll reverse engineer it as best as you can, because you can't really take it apart unless you're willing to sacrifice that actual, I looked the other day at some PAFs on Reverb, and one dude had a bridge that he was selling for $12,000. So it's like, I don't know about that, man.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good replicas by guys who are trying to go after a sound.
What's the difference sonically or mechanically? Whatever is the easiest way to explain it, between, let's say a PAF, whatever PAF you happen to have in mind, and like a T-top.
T-top is a lot more consistent of a pickup. They, for one, had, counters on their winders. They were consistently getting magnets. Although even within T-tops, you'll see a lot of them were Alnico 2, short Alnico 2, and then there were a lot that were short Alnico 5. I think it's pretty consistent, the T-top, that they were using shorter magnets. They changed the wire coating on them. So a T-top has poly wire on it, and the PAF has plain enamel. Both were unpotted, which is a huge part in the sound. I think so. I guess if you had to just kind of sum it down, that the T-top was a little more consistent than the PAF.
Okay. Sonically in the same neighborhood, though?
Absolutely. I mean, the T-top is a sound of the 70s as far as I'm concerned. Like, a lot of those players, they did have, 59s or 57 Les Pauls, but a lot of them had newer Les Pauls that were from the era that they grew up in. And I think you'd be surprised at a lot of the classic sounds that guys are after were T-tops, or even the patent number pickups, which is essentially a PAF, but they actually had received the patent, so now they didn't have to put patent applied for it. It was just the patent number.
I had read that patent number 2737842.
Oh, yes.
was actually the patent for the trapeze bridge.
That's wild. I hadn't heard that, but really, like, the way that the lore, comes with a lot of gear, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. All right. So you are a new player or even a seasoned player, and you are now wanting to kind of dip your toe in this rabbit hole of a PAF, right? And you're not going to spend $12,000 on a bridge PAF because you're just kind of starting to get interested in this. And where do you start?
That the early PAF designs would be what I would go after, because the intent behind the PAF was to make a noise-free P90. So, you kind of think of the characteristics of a P90 that you want. You want a fuller mid-range, a nice high end that's got some bite to it. Just something that's pretty just nasty. It reacts when you dig in. I would probably look for something that is Alnico 2 or maybe Alnico 4, about 7.5 to maybe 7.8 K, wound with plain enamel wire and unpotted is what I would look for. And that's in a bridge. In a neck, now the thing with the PAF neck, because it's not, there's no quality control, a lot of the neck pickups, very muddy. A lot of older players would dial in their amp specifically for the neck pickup, and then they would use their tone control on the bridge. So what's great now, this is a great time to be a guitar player, because you have guys that their main focus, we're gear nerds at the end of the day, and it's like our focus is, I want this to sound rad. So I would look for something in the low 7s to high 6s. Also Alnico 2, Alnico 4, plain enamel, unpotted. That'll be a sweet PAF sound. You'll have a nice bright neck that'll balance with your bridge. Middle position it'll have some spank to it, nice clarity. That's something too that, like, until I started getting into replicating PAFs, the middle position was forgotten. It was just kind of like, Yeah. And now it's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then when you combine it with 50s wiring, and you're in the middle position, you turn your neck down a little bit. It's got that sound.
Yeah. I think that's a thing that in general, when we look back on vintage gear and think of how great it was, and we think of the Jimmy Pages and the Jimi Hendrix and the Jeff Becks and the, stuff like that, we want a button that will replicate the sound that they made. And one of the things that we often don't consider is that they were wrestling with those guitars, and they were wrestling with their gear the whole time. It's like, you can't say, Jimmy Page's solo on such and such, Houses of the Holy with, bridge pickup on it could have been bridge pickup with the tone rolled down to 2. You have no idea.
That's right.
Like, and because, and you watch old footage of, old timers, as we call them, playing, and their hands are constantly down here. And so, the PAF may be this great pickup in the hands of somebody who knows how to wrestle with it. And, right. And my experience with a lot of modern guitar players is that they don't like to touch this stuff. And so, you could get something you could have a set of PAFs that you choose not to wrestle with. $12,000 bridge is not going to sound the way you want it to, right?
It probably won't sound like $12,000. Yeah.
Well, I had hoped that we were gonna blow this whole thing wide open and answer every single question and solve the mystery of the PAF. It almost seems like the mystery is more important than the product itself.
I would agree with that. I know that there are some winders that advertise like, hey, this is wound on this is Gibson's old winder that all those Magic PAFs were wound on, and then you look, and then there's another winder who's been using the same winder for years, and that's not a big marketing part of their product. And both of those pickups sound completely different from each other, so it lets you know that there's a little more to this than just magnets and wire and measurements.
Yeah.
And I think the imperfection is where the magic is.
Kind of like Paul McCartney said, music is what happens between the notes.
That's right.
There we go. Well, thanks for your time, man. This is Joshua Spataro from Righteous Sound Pickups. Check it out. He is my favorite. And I'm not just saying this because he's on the screen. This is my favorite pickup builder on the planet. All right.
So that actually cleared up a lot of the mystery for me. There is no one PAF sound. There are lots of different PAF sounds because they were so inconsistent. and the ones that we salivate over, and the ones that we're trying to recreate, like the pearly gates and stuff like that, the ones that are really, really special. So when Josh Spataro of Righteous Sound or the folks at Throwback go for that PAF sound, they're basing it off one set of PAFs that they heard that they thought was absolutely wonderful. So thank you to Josh at Righteous Sound for taking time out of your day to clear up this mystery for me, at least. And if you haven't subscribed to the Stringjoy channel, do so. Comment below, give us your likes, and definitely sign up for the Stringjoy email list, and you get weekly content sent straight to your inbox. So until next time, I'll see you when I see you.